Anthony Richmond's Global Apartheid, Refugees, Racism, and the New World Order comprises essays that explore the intersections of post-industrialism, postmodernism, and globalization, with international migration, racial conflict, and ethnic nationalism. The collection includes previously published articles, providing a nuanced and updated perspective. The content is structured into 3 sections: an in-depth exploration of theory, analysis of key issues emphasizing the multifaceted nature of migration flows and ethnic relations, and comparisons of policies and responses among Great Britain, the United States, Australia, and Canada. The final section delves into the priorities and dilemmas of the post-industrial era, offering prescriptive alternatives for the evolving global order. Richmond employs the potent analogy of apartheid to elucidate the strategies adopted by industrialized countries globally, including Europe, North America, and Australasia. These regions aim to shield themselves from perceived threats to their territorial integrity and privileged lifestyles, primarily stemming from escalating international migration movements. The nature and scale of migration have evolved due to events and processes in our globalized post-industrial society, with an estimated 70 million people living and working in countries other than their own, and over 1 million emigrating permanently each year. Richmond underscores the irony that, while South Africa dismantles official apartheid, other parts of the world seem inclined to construct restrictive policies reminiscent of those employed in South Africa during the 1950s. The justifications for these measures echo familiar themes: defense of existing cultural and social institutions, state security, maintenance of law and order, preservation of ethnic identity, protection of economic privilege, and regulation of population movements. In the post-industrial society, the metaphorical hedge planted by Dutch colonials takes the form of armed patrols, data banks, fingerprinting, travel restrictions, judicial hearings, and policy instruments like the Schengen Agreement and the Dublin Convention. The rapid pace of technological advancement, exemplified by the communication revolution, has facilitated closer linkages and interdependence globally. Events occurring in one location can set off a chain reaction with repercussions felt in distant countries. However, globalization has introduced contradictions into this interconnected world. While money, goods, and information flow relatively freely across borders, people face constraints on their movement. Migration pressures arise from shifts in economic growth areas and displacement due to conflicts. The predominant response has been an attempt to restrict these movements, labeling individuals as illegal or undesirable, who might have been previously welcomed as valuable workers or escapees from oppressive regimes. This simplistic approach to the complex phenomenon inherent in globalization fails to address the root issues, and the fortress-like barriers are ultimately unsustainable. Richmond contends that a system of global apartheid is destined to fail. In his book, Richmond confronts the challenge of providing a platform for discussing numerous controversial issues prevalent in current political discourse in Canada and beyond. Despite the constraints imposed by the swift and unpredictable nature of change, he successfully navigates these challenges. Richmond asserts, for instance, that ethnic diversity characterizes almost all post-industrial societies. The critical question emerges: can cultural pluralism coexist with equal opportunities and the integration of immigrants? As globalization advances, will heterogeneity persist, potentially leading to the deterritorialization of cultures at the expense of homogeneity? In the midst of an era marked by structural contradictions and the potential for social conflict, the absence of effective global governmental institutions is evident. The United Nations, in particular, is criticized for its failure to prevent civil wars across continents. Faced with these challenges, politicians, bureaucrats, and academics grapple with the responsibility of formulating policies on peacekeeping, international migration, and refugee movements. The author emphasizes the need to discard outdated plans and programs, urging a comprehensive re-evaluation of the entire system on a global scale, and fostering international cooperation. Short-term self-interest must yield to policies that serve the long-term interests of all, with active participation from people in developing countries. Richmond argues that absolute state sovereignty is no longer tenable, as boundaries become permeable, and defense mechanisms like walls, iron curtains, and surveillance systems prove ineffective. Sustainable development is advocated, with territories and resources held in trust for future generations. Beyond structural analysis, the author links concerns about territorial integrity and state sovereignty to individuals' ontological security needs, and collective fears of identity loss. The book provides an extensive empirical analysis of contemporary catalysts for social, economic, and political change, such as the legacy of colonialism, economic disparities, superpower confrontations, and recent shifts in Eastern Europe. The final chapter introduces 3 alternative scenarios for the New World Order: nostalgic, pragmatic, and utopian. The United Nations is positioned within the realistic utopian alternative. While the author skillfully leads the reader to the realization that there is no clear exit from the global impasse, the less tangible nature of the alternatives in the last chapter leaves the reader yearning for a more substantial conclusion. The author gives considerable weight to the theoretical underpinnings of central issues and concepts, providing students with a comprehensive understanding of the academic landscape. This exhaustive contemporary work on the impact of globalization and post-industrialization on migration and racial/ethnic conflict offers thought-provoking insights, making it recommended reading for students, policymakers, and researchers.